Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Nati-Cast, all things Cincinnati. And now to your hosts, Tim Barker, Rex Stull, and Ron Thomas.
The weather is fantastic here this time of the year.
Yes, we're all three in TCP studios together, which, by the way, I really enjoyed doing it when we could all be in the same place.
Yes, me too.
I was dreaming up some topics as I was sitting there. I was regaling people with a story. And Tim wanted a visual, so I was riding. Picture a zero-turn lawnmower on the farm, my headphones on, 80s on 8, Sirius XM playing in the ears. Maybe they could be a sponsor, Matthew.
Yeah.
And I had to seriously scale back the mowing ambitions when Matthew left us and moved to Hermosa.
I bet.
Because there's a sweet spot in time from about 11 to, and even when he was in college, we used to drag his ass back where he was cutting the grass, and it was awesome. And then when he moved away, it was probably, not that I don't miss Matthew,
right?
One of the saddest things. So we used to have this like riding, like a regular riding mower track, like a little lawn tractor thing, John Deere, and that thing was finally dying. And so I went out. I'm gonna get one of the big zero turns, bigger deck, and zoom it around. So it came, and Matthew immediately hopped on it, and he started cutting the grass, and I literally never rode the thing. So he's getting ready to leave, or at some point in time, and he was going like, dude, I'm going to have to give you a lesson on the zero turn. I'm like, how hard could it be? It's got two levers, it goes in circles. So he's like, all right, hop on this thing. Immediately, I look, I don't know, I look like a lunatic on this thing. It's going in the wrong place. It goes so fast, and you don't know how to stop the thing. And I run over Wendy's hostas and start chopping the flowers down.
Oh no,
it was not good.
Now this may be a generational thing, Matthew, but like my memory of cutting the grass was a push mower, so that's probably
Was it completely manual?
Well, it was gas. Push. Okay. Then the upgrade was the bar that you
self-propelled.
Correct.
Yes,
that was the upgrade. But the mistake was wearing my brand new Stan Smith white sneakers and cutting the grass.
Oh, and the green, the permanent green.
That was
but the only thing, the back of the Stan Smiths had that green Adidas tag.
Yeah,
so.
but dude, they were busted.
No,
they were
it didn't match. It just done.
So you will never know that, Matthew.
No, exactly.
That feeling.
Oh. Well, right, because if you talked mom and dad out of Stan Smith's, back in the day, that was a big deal.
Yeah.
That was a big deal.
Absolutely.
And, you go out and you trash them. Remember, you used to have to keep them white.
Right.
Right.
They even had like the white, the whitener,
the marker thing.
Yeah.
We used to, we inherited, lived in Mount Adams, right? So there really wasn't, and they'd have these little postage stamp front lawns. So nobody had lawnmowers. And we'd actually rented a little garage next to our house. And when my grandparents had moved out of their house, we inherited their lawnmower. So Dave and I would have this lawnmower. So this is, early mid 80s. We would roll around Mount Adams, and they would pay us $10 to cut. It couldn't have been 15 feet by 10 feet.
Right.
You'd roll into these Mount Adams people and be like, we'll cut. And they're like, yeah, great. They give you $10. We could roll up our street, clear 100, 120 bucks, no problem.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it was great. So because we were the only people with a lawnmower in Mount Adams. So anyway, I'm on my now zero turn lawnmower, which I could have done one of those things in one swipe. And that the song Back in Time, the Huey Lewis song from Back to the Future came on. And I was sitting there thinking, you listen to the opening lyric, and I wrote it down here. It's, tell me, doctor, where are we going this time? Is it the 50s or 1999? I thought, at that time, I think Matthew used the word treatment, right? Where you just sent like a story synopsis to an artist and said, hey, write us a song.
Sure.
But it seems brilliant to me, like a lost window. And I guess they do it somewhat. Maybe the Barbie movie had some.
Oh, yeah.
But it just doesn't seem like it's as prevalent now where you're,
I think the whole game has changed.
Yeah, but think about like Top Gun, when Take My
Right.
Breath Away, or
They
Danger
used
Zone.
the sequel, this recent sequel,
Yes.
Maverick. I believe Kenny Loggins
It did a
did
song.
a song.
Yeah.
So, but that's just the connection of him doing
going back and doing it.
correct.
But I don't know. I started thinking about, like I said, movie soundtracks. I mean, where is Ghostbusters without Ghostbusters?
Right. Well, but if you remember the thing with Ghostbusters, there was the whole plagiarism thing. Ray Parker Jr. wrote it, and
Right.
it was speaking of Huey Lewis, it was I Want a New Drug, wasn't it?
I think you're right.
But as the story goes, the producer or somebody, the producer director of Ghostbusters, actually, that's why a lot of people wouldn't take that project on because I want a song like I Want a New Drug. He specifically called out the song he wanted the theme to sound like. And that's why
Ray Parker Jr. came up
that's
with
why
it.
it sounded so
And
much
he
like
wrote
it.
that
Well, basically
quick.
it was.
I felt like he famously,
Well, it was already
in a
written.
night.
Who are you going to call? But that's why that all happened. He was specifically, he was requested. The request was there.
Right.
Write a song like this. I like that song so much, and the song was doing so well on the charts. So the director or the producer, whoever it was, don't quote me on who it was. I'm not sure, but yeah.
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 Well, I mean, and also, I mean, think about it, just all the classic '80s movies where the soundtrack was so much a part of the film.
Yeah.
Even if it was, like Breakfast Club, and I mean, you can hear the song and you can like see the images in your head,
Right.
that went along with them. I don't know. I just think it's kind of one of those things in storytelling. I mean, Bond movies are a perfect example, right? They still do it today, where
Right.
they commission a Bond theme song.
I feel like that's its own category, though. I mean, that's
Well, right. It was
you could have an entire episode on which Bond song was the greatest from
Right.
what film, or
Right.
what
Right.
artist,
and what era, even.
Totally.
Right.
See, that's interesting. I wonder if that, maybe to your point, Rex, is that it's a lost,
Right.
that
I think the pop thing is.
Yeah.
I mean, I do.
Yeah.
And I was even, it led me to even think about TV shows, right? If you think about theme songs for TV shows, and you just, Hawaii Five-0 is that classic, both the visual and openings with the drums and the going into it. Or
sure.
But even then, songs where they would play on the radio, I mean, like the Friends theme, right? You can't hear the start of the Friends theme, but you
Right.
instantly know where it is. Or
You want to jump
Wait.
off.
Was that a song? Was it a song first and was adopted as a theme to the
that,
show, or was
that's
it?
a good question. But if you think about it, it's a perfect fit for the show, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
the lyrics.
It is, but then if you, like, I'm thinking now of like the Cheers, it fits for the visual. Like, I would feel like listening to that song in your car or whatever. That's kind of weird.
Well, it's
You know?
it's like whenever a song even gets used for a commercial, right? You can't really listen to it anymore.
Right.
I don't know. There's one for some feminine hygiene products. I forget what song it is. But now when it comes on the radio, you're like, oh, come on.
Right. Well, it pains me to my core, the
Here we go
Ozempic.
again, or something like that. I think it's for.
The Ozempic, the it's magic.
Oh, yeah, that's
Right.
right.
I love that song, and now it's ruined.
What was the Stevie
Yeah.
Wonder song they took for
For AT&T?
Orange Juice? It was like Minute Maid. No,
No.
nothing.
No,
Got
nothing on that one. No.
We're getting word
Well-
that that song for Friends was specifically written for Friends.
The lyrics
okay.
seem too perfect,
Right.
And it did chart, right? I mean, I think it did actually play it on the radio, but yeah, like my point isn't that then the song's overplayed, and you certainly don't want to sit and listen to it in your
Right.
car.
Right.
My point is that it just immediately locks you in. I'm just thinking it's a missed opportunity because it locks your brain into what it is,
Right.
and where it came from.
I think the transfer is also, I mean, and please chime in, but when Mad Men came out, the opening cards for these shows, it became more of a visual than a song.
You're right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, they definitely changed the
because now
titles.
even Game of Thrones, like those opens, which are usually to music, but it's the visual as opposed to
No, you're right. And
musical.
that whole kind of title credits thing has changed.
Yes.
But have we lost something there? I mean, I'm just wondering, and maybe even just from a marketing perspective. Mm-hmm. I mean,
If they could make money off of it, though, they're going to do it.
You're probably right.
They're not going to back off that.
But I mean, Gilligan's Island. I mean, it's literally the entire premise of the show is spelled out, including the cast.
Right.
Oh yeah! Wow. Yeah.
Again, the skipper too,
Yep.
the millionaire and his wife. And I believe in later seasons they added. It was
and the rest.
But then
Yes.
they went the professor
and Mary Ann.
So I don't know whether that was a contract
Oh, it had to
renegotiation.
be. Just absolutely had to be.
Because the beginning seasons it was and the
Yeah,
rest.
the
and
movie star
Hey.
and the rest, and then
It's like in the Star Trek credits in the original first season, it was just Shatner and Nimoy coming up in the title credits, and then they added DeForest Kelley, Dr. McCoy in the second season. So I think some of this is contract. I think some of this is contract
Right.
related.
well, with Gilligan's Island, the professor. It's like I'm keeping this whole thing going. He's the one keeping them all alive on the island.
He's the
Totally.
he could make batteries and launch a spacecraft from this island, but he couldn't patch a 2-foot hole in the side of the boat.
Exactly. Yeah. He kept making batteries. We got coconut husk and
We can't. We
And
got
a
the boat
vine,
is still
yeah.
here, right? It was up
the
on
boat
the
was
beach.
the boat was there.
But-
WKRP in Cincinnati.
Oh,
There.
and
Uh-huh.
again,
I mean,
there we
my
go. I mean,
goodness,
right
that
back
is-
to Nati-Cast.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yup.
thinking about this
There you
theme
go.
song
Yeah.
for,
Yeah.
and the funny thing is, I guess people from here don't know, but that the opening shot of the title sequence from that, they're shooting WKRC's tower, right? And,
Yeah.
But that song, I mean, round and round, up and down the dial. That was
Yeah.
clearly written for it and also charted. I mean, that made it.
Absolutely. We got to talk to Brando. Maybe
Charlie's
we can,
Angels.
We can get a little. He can help us work on some lyrics.
We could. Oh, you mean to go with our? But see, I like that. I like the full because you can go instrumental. I mean, Rockford Files,
True.
Hawaii 5-0,
Yeah.
Mash.
Right.
Yeah, you can think of any number of
It was
examples.
Kate
Magnum
Jackson
PI.
Charlie's
Kate
Angel.
Jackson, Charlie's
From
Angels.
Charlie's
Yeah.
Angels.
Yeah. What was the third one's name?
On
Charlie's Angels. The
Cheryl,
originals.
was it Cheryl Ladd?
No, it was later. So,
Teagues.
No, those
No.
were later. There was
There was three.
three of them.
What?
The original one was Farrah Fawcett. It was Kate Jackson.
Yeah.
and
Wasn't that Victoria Principal?
No, that's Dallas, man.
Sorry.
Ron still got his "Who Shot Jr." T-shirt. Oh man! Going back to Star Wars for a second, does anybody Mandalorian? Does the people anybody watching that?
I did watch.
Did you?
I enjoyed it. Did you not like it?
I didn't. I
see
didn't
it
jump
at all.
into those waters.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I liked
I heard
it.
great things about it.
Yeah, and it's an interesting pace. I mean, John Favreau did those, and I mean, to me, he reinvented the whole Marvel universe when he did that first Iron Man movie. I mean, I just thought that was a brilliant take on what launched what is now the whole Marvel universe.
Here's a question, John Favreau question for you: director or actor?
Oh, 100%. It's got to be director now. Although I will tell you,
He's a hell of an actor.
A seminal movie for me was Swingers.
Swingers, man.
I lived that. Very
You were swing
life.
dancing in.
I went to that was the Brown Derby.
Ah,
I went there for
okay.
my 24th birthday.
Wow.
Right there. So all those places, the Dresden Room where they were playing, all those places that were in Swingers. We used to call it the California Carpool, where you have like.
Everybody putting the
everybody
clubs
in
on
their
the
own,
car?
but everybody in their own, well, the clubs too,
Yeah,
right?
that was
But
a
where
great
you'd
scene.
end up with a line of 10 people, but everybody driving their own cars around
Right.
to the various parties and
Right.
having to know it. So I mean, to me, that movie, all of it, going to Vegas, the whole thing, all of the places.
Yeah.
That was when I was living in LA. So I mean, I absolutely. I mean, he's no question, he's a good actor.
Right.
But I just think
You're going director.
He's done what he's done directing has got to be. I mean, I think Iron Man. I mean, think about that. The billions and billions of in.
I've never seen it.
Oh, have you seen any of the Marvel movies?
I'm not a real. It's funny because I haven't.
Okay.
I don't know what. I mean,
So,
not that I'm against it in
you
any
can
way,
get-
but it just doesn't. I don't get as excited as most
I
other
fully
folks.
I fully understand that. And by the way, you could get seriously lost in whatever the Marvel universe is today.
And there's like a rivalry between
But
DC
if
and
you just
know.
go back and forget all of it, because you don't need to know any of it, because Iron Man was like a
Right.
B version comic anyway, right? It wasn't Spider-Man or Superman or
Sure.
whatever. It wasn't one of the A's. Just go when you have a chance. You're sitting there in the evening and watch the original Iron Man movie.
Okay.
Great standalone piece of
Okay.
movie.
Yeah.
And you know, and resurrected Robert Downey Jr.'s career.
Right.
I mean, totally resurrected that guy's career.
Okay.
So I would recommend that one. Now
I will do
the
that.
rest of it, I mean, it goes, you know, I don't, you're 18 layers deep. You don't have to get into all that
Avengers
stuff.
and-
yeah, the only other one that kind of pops to mind that really spoke to me was the original Guardians of the Galaxy. Part of that though was soundtrack.
Okay.
They had a great soundtrack for that movie where he was. I mean, the premise was he was playing. You know, he had this Walkman, a cassette Walkman that he'd gotten from his mother. You know, he's wandering
Okay.
around in space now, but he'd gotten from his mother. Had basically like a mixtape of 70s kind of, lack of a better word, probably yacht rock type songs
Sure.
on it. And it had a great soundtrack to it.
That's kind of brilliant.
Yacht rock.
Like tie in.
Absolutely.
You know, like that's brilliant.
Exactly. So,
But then my mind, see, that's my problem. My mind then goes, wait a second, what year is this taking place? And he's got a cassette player. You know what I mean? Like,
you have
haven't
to.
they?
It actually, no, they pulled the reason that he has it and how he got up there and why he's doing what he's doing. It all works.
Okay.
It makes sense that
Got
he's
it.
clung on to this Walkman with a cassette tape while he's able to have a spaceship and fly around space. Right?
Okay.
Those two things actually come together.
I gotcha.
In a way that's.
Well, the music was a lot better back then.
It's
It just was. Sorry.
You're going 70s?
70s or 80s.
Well, 70s, 80s, even, the 90s.
You can't
before.
group them, though.
Well,
I mean, those are
right.
two different
No, but no,
eras.
I just kind of mean just kind of in general back when, well, we were touching on it earlier, back when there were people that wrote songs.
Mm.
There were songwriters, there were lyricists.
Yeah.
But just think about some of the groups that were around back then. Earth, Wind, and Fire in Chicago. And,
well, and you can even
the
turn
stuff
it
they wrote.
and take somebody like Tina Turner, whose career was resurrected with that album. Was it called
Solo.
Private Dancer?
Yeah, that first
which
solo
I think
album,
she
yeah.
recorded in like 2 weeks, and she was on kind of the scrap heap of history. There's some great doc out there talking about it. But they pulled together some songs for her, and she laid that stuff down. But that's an example then of taking an artist and writing songs for her, or for her to perform. Yeah. Do you guys remember buying your first records? You guys?
Absolutely. AC/DC, Back in Black, Queen.
This is all vinyl. This is
Yeah. And then there's some that were conflict because earlier memory of, and they're my mom's, but like Roberta Flack,
Sure.
Elvis,
See, I
a
didn't
George Carlin comedy album.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, see, now Dave and Rita didn't have any George Carlin comedy
No?
albums. No, which
Richard Pryor.
Oh, see, I would have loved to have had those back in the day.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah, sneaking in the basement to listen to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had to sneak around and like when
But see,
my
you
mom
had,
wasn't
you
home
had
and
older,
stuff.
you had
Had
older
older
brothers
siblings,
and sisters.
yeah.
So you probably.
Oh yeah.
I was always jealous of that. I mean, Dave's I have an older brother, but he was never really into it, right? So it wasn't like you had this, 2 or 3, 4-year-old brother, or sister who were leading you
Right.
into it, right? You didn't have that either,
I'm
right?
only child, so,
Right. Just kind of sneaking around and snickering at, Richard Pryor and
Oh yeah.
and,
Sugar Hill Gang.
Red Fox,
That label.
Yeah.
Red
Yeah.
Fox was another one.
Well, that was
Wheezy.
huge with those comedy albums, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
That was big. That was a
It
big
was
deal.
it was huge, and it's pre Eddie Murphy and all of that, but
R.I.P. Bob Newhart. He was one of those early.
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
that album
those
that he
album-
put
yeah.
out, I mean, it was brilliant stuff.
Totally.
But those comedy albums were, and I missed later, you know what I mean? Later on, I went back and did it, but at the time, I missed all of it.
Dave, your brother's probably listening to this great tuba album. You know, check out. He's like, what is this?
No. Well, Dave's stuff was like Jaco Pastorius.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he was such a disappointment in that.
Maynard
front,
Ferguson. You know, he had that Maynard Ferguson album.
And, you know, like Dave and Rita had, you know, there was I don't Neil Diamond and you know that kind of stuff. Some
Sweet
Barbra Streisand show
Caroline.
tunes. I mean, show tunes.
You're in Jack's.
Oklahoma,
Yeah.
when you come here.
Oh man.
Yeah.
And probably some of those songs. Well, at least James Brown. I mean, he was recording at King Records.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
Yeah, we mentioned that before, King's Records there, but and I think
That's still there, right? Is that
The building. The building is still there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that a couple things have been launched to try to do some work to resurrect it or do something like it. There is a plaque in front of it now.
I was going to say historical society.
Historical marker is in
Right.
front of it now, and you can see that it's King Records. But basically, that whole thing when 71 went through there and cut that neighborhood in half, you know, so it's not easy to get to. I mean, it's
Right.
not like it's difficult, but you do have to do a couple little round and arounds to get to it. And it's hard to see.
We should probably look up
You know.
and for another time and just look at the things that were recorded there because I know there was a ton of famous stuff, and you know, and a lot of interracial stuff there, right? I mean, there are a lot of black artists there.
Yeah.
That you know, James Brown in particular launched from there. So I mean, I think
Right.
that's a kind of Matthew's tossed some things. I mean, look at the names. I mean, there's huge numbers of names of people that came through King's Records.
Is that what this is, Matt? These are all people that came through King Records?
These are things recorded at King Records.
Recorded at King? Really? Wow.
Mood Indigo,
Wow.
Bill Jennings. Okay.
Huh. But yeah, so the building is there, and on any given day you can drive by and there's just a row of tractor trailers parked overnight in front of it.
Wow.
Well,
So-
I know that and I think we talked about this on another. I know that they've raised some money to do plans. I think they want to try to turn it into maybe a museum or, you know what I mean? Do
Okay.
Some kind of one of those types of.
Yeah, but unfortunately it's just in such, according to James Brown, you know, when he was still alive, he came here and that was something he was looking to do that, but apparently he just kind of left in disgust because the building had fallen into just a level of disrepair that he thought there was nothing to do.
Eddie Lockjaw Davis. I love Eddie Lockjaw Davis. Seriously.
Right?
That's fantastic.
Yeah. There's some great names up there. There was a ton of stuff. I mean, it was over 20 years, I think, it was there. I mean, I don't know that the building was there. The other thing is, I don't know there was ever much, right? I mean, I think like most of those places, have you ever been to Sun Records in Memphis or any of
Yeah.
those places?
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
they were fairly nondescript.
Totally.
You know, under the radar sorts of, editing.
Power stations like that in New York.
Right.
It's very, you know, you can walk
just
by
you
it.
never notice
know,
it. Yeah,
and
right.
I remember Bowie was recording something there, and like people were talking about you could be just walking down the street, you know, popping in and not even realize
There's a
it.
great picture of him wandering around. I guess he lived down in the village somewhere, right? But he was he just looked like he was in cargo shorts,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
And you know, it was funny because one of somebody had snapped a picture, and then they were talking to some of the people in the neighborhood, little shops or whatever that he frequents. He goes, David Bowie. He goes, that's David Jones. It's David Bowie's the guy on stage.
Right.
This is
right.
This is David Jones, right?
Right.
He's just the dude that lives up there. He's a nice guy and buys
Yeah.
coffee, which I always thought was a kind of an awesome way to describe it, right? That's a great thing about New York, right? He could move around that city.
I was in Times Square standing there waiting to cross the street. I looked to my right, Lenny Kravitz, and I'm just like, what's up?
Yeah.
He's like, not much.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's it. Okay, that's cool. That's Lenny Kravitz.
I do think it's a great thing about that city is that people can move around
Totally.
and be just a person, you know, just be a person
Yep.
there. Where and there are not a lot of places you can do that.
No.
But New York is definitely one of them.
Well, I was reading how Robin Williams used to do that in San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in his case, it was because he was out so much. He just endeared himself to that community, ingratiated himself to that community.
Yeah.
You know, he'd just go and hang out in the, in the donut shop or bagel shop or whatever to sit and have breakfast. And they just knew him as another guy that frequented their shop.
Yeah, happens to be famous.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's part of it, right? It's where the person can get, I don't think Michael Jackson could ever move through the world like that or somebody like that. But I think there are people who can, especially inside this. I mean, Chappelle does it up in Ohio here, right? He'll go, he's all around up there where he lives. But you know what I mean? Like where somewhere else he might not be able to do that. But there he's just a guy who lives there.
Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
He'll take the subway and.
Yeah. Well, I always love that, and I don't know about how public it is, but I always love the Bill Murray stories where he'll he's out playing golf and he'll crash somebody's wedding.
Oh yeah,
starts.
He was filming. I don't know if it was Alpha House, some series in our neck of the woods in Brooklyn, and I happened to just walk by him, and all I heard him saying to the PA was, "You can't get me on Wi-Fi." That's all. See, he has real world problems just like us.
Yes.
Right.
Well, Chappelle woke me up one day, and we're taking that late flight from Los Angeles to Atlanta, and I was flying first class, upgraded to first class, and so I get there and recline my seat, really tired, and I'm just kind of dozed off, and next thing you know, there's somebody behind, ruffling the seat and kicking the back and everything. And of course I jump up and turn around and it's like Dave Chappelle. I'm going, oh, hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm okay, man. But it was one of those where I guess he waited to the last minute and just, came in and ran into the plane and jumped in the seat and just, but we're just, nice guy though. Just, we just like, hey, how you doing? Okay, I'm good. How are you?
We never really had any big comedy clubs here that I can think of. Obviously we've got little ones, but
I'm thinking Beverly Hills Supper Club, but I don't know if would they have done comedy.
They probably did. We mentioned that earlier, and we really do need to do some research on the things. I'm sure there were certainly comedian openers that came.
Had to be because that was built for that crowd.
And in fact, I think I'd mentioned that Mad Men episode. I think that was a comedian who was going to be playing the Beverly Hills Supper Club in this Mad Men episode. Right, he was sending him there, so I'm sure that there were some huge comedians there.
Yeah,
and that whole Newport area. I mean, it had really kind of gone to seed by the time. We were
there had to be a lot,
but there was a lot. The speakeasy places and the
Larry
Flint connections. Well, right.
It almost begs to be that whole city. It's so fascinating of where the proximity and. We got to delve into that.
Well, I think Cincinnati as a place. The transformation it went through from this ultra conservative hotbed, right? I vividly remember I was traveling at the time when they arrested the curator of the Contemporary Arts Center for the Robert Mapplethorpe exhibit, which was
Simon Lease.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Which was in the the sheriff, and it was in a separate area. It was you had to be aged to go back there. And they actually arrested.
Yeah,
it's such an embarrassment.
And I believe the majority of those pictures were flowers. And there was just one picture, that everybody shined the spotlight on.
Yeah, I remember that. I was on tour when that went down, and I came down in the hotel. I'm having breakfast, and and a lot of the other techs on the tour, they were going, "Oh my God, how could you live in a place like this?"
Yeah, right. And but this city went from that really. That and there was anti-gay legislation on the books, right? To really transformed itself into. I know in the Human Rights Campaign, it gets 100% now. It really has turned itself into something else. It was almost like you think about Cincinnati and its history, where it was a big part of the abolitionist movement, and then it kind of dipped down into this strange, I don't know, very conservative period of time, and really I think has come back and
And do you think that's why Newport existed as it existed because it was like on
absolutely.
the outskirts.
Yeah,
Like that's where that could happen.
I think that's exactly right.
Yeah.
That
It's across the river.
It was on the other side of the river, right? And that's where that kind of stuff happened, right? You couldn't do it here, but you mentioned Larry Flint and Hustler, right? I mean, he intentionally came and opened up that Hustler store to get himself arrested here and try to brought up on pornography charges for opening up a Hustler store.
Wow. Well, remember there's a book. Before there was Vegas, there was Newport.
Is that right?
Oh yeah, and it goes into that. I think there's like a short documentary somewhere on that, but it goes into all of that sort of stuff in Newport. In fact, I read that when I read that book, and I think I gave that book to you, Rex, about the Beverly Hills Supper Club fire.
Yes.
The first half of that book explained all of the connections, all of the mob connections and the gang connections to all those places in Newport.
Wow.
They were all owned outside of Newport.
Yeah.
If you move that
That's
over,
a great pick, man. I would have loved to be playing some craps there.
So we can't read the headline up there, Matthew, but it says, I believe
Before
it's
Vegas,
before
there was
Vegas,
Newport.
Before
Yeah.
Vegas, there was Newport. Yeah.
The Lookout House.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that was another Schillings property, the folks that own Beverly Hills. I think so. There was a Lookout House in Fort Mitchell. Beverly Hills was over in I forget what area that is, just south of Newport.
But that all kind of went together, didn't it? Those big name acts that were coming through. There was always kind of this soft underbelly of, mafia connections. You know what I mean? Like financing those things, and
Sure.
Vegas too. The whole performance piece of it, the gambling,
Right.
My former barber used to hang out during that time, and just hearing some of the stories from him were absolutely amazing at what was going on
In Newport?
And Newport,
Yeah.
yeah. And that whole thing started when we were talking about that book, that Supper Club book, and we were talking about the first half of it, and a lot of the people I was telling him about, people I was reading about, he knew.
Wow.
And then he even added to that, what do they say about, I won't say the names, but what do
Right.
they say about this person? Well, I don't know about him. Well, he was the guy that did, where the book would just kind of be on the fringes of something, and this guy would go right to the heart of what that was.
I remember I don't remember what year that fire was in, but I was a kid, and we lived in Mount Adams, and we could see out of our window across to Kentucky, and you could see the fire that night.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You could see the glowing smoke coming up from it. I remember that.
Eerie.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I saw it when it came on the news. Al Shadowkali, when they broke in and they were, they were reporting on that fire. But yeah, John Davidson was the headliner that night.
That's right.
And lost his music director.
You know why?
He sent him back for the charts.
He had the charts, but when you're a headliner, you travel. So you have your music director. Maybe you've got your probably
your
or two or three
music
people,
director
maybe
in the rhythm section. You
piano, bass,
travel
drums,
with,
maybe travel with you, kind of thing. And then you have the orchestra you hire locally, and so they have the big charts, the arrangements that the bands play when you sing. Right? They pay a lot of money to get those charts done.
Oh.
So they'd gotten out. And he sent the music director back in to get his charts, and the dude never made it out.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
Changed fire codes.
Yeah.
In this country, completely changed the way doors open.
Well, Cincinnati
panic bars and
think
all
about
that
it.
sort of
Cincinnati
stuff.
has two of those things, right? Because then there was the Who concert,
Yes,
right?
Right.
At the Coliseum, which is now U.S. Bank. It's not. It's called.
It's like Heritage Bank Center now.
But right where they had festival seating.
Yeah.
And they had those doors.
I had an Uber driver recently who was at that concert.
Really?
And he was telling me that they screwed up on letting that it wasn't just flat, general seating. That wasn't the
they
problem.
They didn't have the doors open. They didn't have
Correct.
enough doors. They had them.
So there was the issue on the event.
Yes.
Not
They didn't
following.
They didn't open up enough doors, and then you have that big, that plaza that's built around there, and even before Great American Ballpark, it was even tighter. You get in there, and then just the mob of people.
Right.
Yeah.
And the story goes, the show went on, and they didn't tell them like that the manager of the band didn't tell them before they won it afterwards. And those guys in that band throughout, I mean, recently even to today, stayed in contact with those families who lost their kids.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
You know,
one of them was in town not very long ago.
Came through, They would come through and visit,
come through
and do
town
it
and hang out with
completely until recently, where it got noted. They would just do it completely off the radar.
Yeah, for decades, no one knew that was happening, and then it came out recently that they were doing that.
But if you play any venue in Cincinnati now, even like a theater, like the Taft Theater, one of the venues, the house opens. Normally, a house opens 30 minutes before a show.
Right.
In Cincinnati, opens 1 hour before show, and that was a direct result of one of the things that came from the Who concert.
Wow.
You have to open. So any show, like I said, it can even be, you know, nobody's rating this stage at, you know, the Taft Theater, but you have to open the house an hour before, which, you know, if you're on a union contract, it's nice. It gets you an extra. Because anything you have to do has to happen before the show's at 8. You know, you got to be done by 7. So now you got to come in at 6 or whatever. So,
wow.
Yeah, a little extra call time for my friends in IATSE. It's funny. I remember watching Ronnie host. He did these. I don't even know how you got on those tours. He did these. They were called the CBS College Tour.
Oh, the college tour, yeah.
And they did these game shows, right? And what did you host? Family Feud.
He was the host of the Family Feud, yeah.
Yeah.
On college campuses for a couple years.
Campuses.
Yeah.
And ran. I mean, he was like the host of the Feud.
Yeah. Well, I was a tech director, but I ended up hosting the Family Feud.
That's great.
Well, I was also one of the competition announcers for the Nintendo World Championships.
Yeah, we talked about that with Dave. I think
that.
And
in fact, there is Family Feud footage. There's CBS College Tour footage that I have.
Oh, we need to see
including I think there's a clip of me hosting the Family Feud in there. But backtracking to what we were just talking about, that was during the time that Ray Combs was the host of the actual Family Feud. Yeah,
Cincinnati,
from right up the road in Hamilton, and he actually had a comedy club downtown.
He did, didn't he?
Oh,
yes.
you're right.
He did.
Yes, he did.
Forgotten
now
that.
I think about it,
Ray
Combs had a comedy club here in town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he took over from, it was Richard Dawson.
Yes.
Right? Was the original Feud host.
Pinky ring and full-on mouth kiss.
Oh, yeah.
Male or female.
With the 3-piece suit.
Come here, darling.
I think of Richard Dawson but think about him on Hogan's Heroes. And let's just take a second for Hogan's Heroes.
Oh, my God.
We're going to
right?
a 30-minute comedy with a laugh track about a concentration camp.
There you go.
How do you do that? How does that happen?
It's the masks, Rex. It's drama and comedy. You have to find the humor in the darkness.
Oh, man.
There's actually that. I don't know if you watched it. I don't know if you're a Godfather fan, but there's on Paramount Plus. It's called The Offer, and it's about the producer's name just escaped me. Who produced The Godfather? Albert Reddy. And went on to become a famous producer. But his claim to fame before he ended up producing The Godfather was he created Hogan's Heroes. Right? He created Hogan's Heroes. So
but so when Combs comes out to visit and he finds out I'm from Cincinnati, he would come out a couple times and we would just we would host the college version together.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I did a couple campuses. I got to watch you.
Yeah.
Just roll
work as magic.
Yeah, exactly. It was great. I loved it.
Yeah.
It was fantastic.
And then Ray, you're from Cincinnati, and then boom, next thing you know, we're on stage together hosting the Family Feud on college campuses.
And Ron had this thing too, because on cruise ships it was the same thing. I mean, he's the sound guy or whatever, the tech guy, but he ends up calling bingo and like hosting passenger talent shows. He really should have been the cruise director,
right?
I'm not lying.
No,
right?
I'll give you. Yeah, I'll give you. Well, remember one of the first times. I forget who you were, but you walked onto a ship and you went past where all of our pictures are displayed. And you caught it. Not a whole lot of people really would have caught that, but you caught where my picture was in the center and elevated above everyone else's, I was the cruise director. It was just one of those things.
So,
right.
I was quite the dandy back then. That's custom shirts.
So my favorite Ron Thomas photograph story of all times will be 1986 graduation, School for Creative Performing Arts. And we're behind Music Hall, and there was like this, concrete terrace thing. And so we're all supposed to stand up there.
Right.
And, wear our robes to get our class picture taken. So if you were in the top 10% of the class, you had a white tassel that could go around your neck.
I did not have one of those.
And nor did I, and trust me, neither did Ron. But you know who did have one was David Stahl Jr. from the year before. So Ron, unbeknownst to any of us, he takes that tassel, which he'd found up at our house, rolls down to graduation with it. They're lining everybody up. They're trying to get the pictures ready. And I'm standing next to him.
Yeah.
He bends down, tosses his white tassel around his neck, the biggest sheet-eating grin on his face, and they snap this picture. And so forever now, he is the dude with the congratulations. I was like, that is the way to the top 10%.
Okay. Smile, everybody.
If you take up a yearbook from 1986 from Performing Arts School, there it is. Exactly.
Big
the way
flash.
you did it, it's just like the old-timey flash went off. Exactly.
With that whine.
And then just discard the bulb.
like you're in the Untouchables or something, right? Where they were
like walking on the.
The Nati-Cast is proudly brought to you by Pago Lago Productions. The show is hosted by Tim Barker, Rex Stull, and Ron Thomas. Produced and edited by Matthew Lake and associate produced by Ethan Spanja. Special thanks to Sadie Kern at Pop Gun Flow for the graphics and to Brando Triantafilu for the original theme song. Feel free to follow us at _Nati-Cast on Instagram or head to our website, thenattycast.com. You can get this show wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll see you next time.